I Love Mortgage Brokering, episode 89.
Want to learn from the top 5% of mortgage brokers in the country? Then you have come to the right place. Join Scott Peckford on I Love Mortgage Brokering.
Hi, Broker Nation. I am thrilled to introduce my guest today, Truong. Sua is a mortgage broker with Mortgages Lab Financial. He's been a broker for 5.5 years. He's an author of a book called Confessions of a Bank Financier. He also puts on training for people, for brokers, in how to do commercial deals. He's an absolute expert at this, and I am stoked for this interview today. Sua, are you ready to rock?
Yeah, you bet, man. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Awesome. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Well, my business is the same as your business, Scott. The only thing's difference is when I first came into the business, I came from the business side from CIBC. So I was more familiar with the commercial stuff. When, for me, residential just didn't make a lot of sense. It was difficult. So for me, it was cutting my teeth, basically doing residential deals.
So how did you get into the mortgage business? So and you seem to be really focused on commercial, but so nobody as a little kid says, when I grow up, I want to, finance commercial property. So what was your path into our industry?
Well, originally my path was, it's funny how I call this, it's my calling. Apparently, over 15 odd years ago, there was a company called Aaron Mortgage Corporation that came into our path, and long story short, I trusted a mortgage broker there, and I lost my father's life saving, my life saving, and my friend's money too. And I thought, nobody should be like this. Take advantage of people. There's no other mortgage broker there should be some mortgage broker out there that is have a good heart and help people out in their biggest investment, basically. And I said, perhaps at that time I thought, why not me?
Right.
So over the years, I somehow made my way through all the different industry, but I came back through financial services, and here I am today as a mortgage broker.
And you said you had lost some money. So do you mind sharing the way that you were treated or the advice you're given that lost you money?
Well, it all sounded great because when you don't have the knowledge, there's a philosopher that has a saying that people who don't know, they don't have the proper knowledge, they basically lose out. So, and the people who do know, people who don't know about information, they end up losing and paying for it. And people who do know the information, they take advantage of it. And I believe that that's what happened. The guy was a vice president of the company, and I trusted him that he knew what he was doing. And he said that we can take the money, invest into mortgage-backed securities, and invest into business that couldn't be financed part of the bank. And we made some money, but eventually, it was a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
Millions of dollars were lost across Canada.
Wow. Yeah, that's never any fun. So before we dive into your story, I always like to ask about a success quote. I love how quotes are portable, they're memorable, and if you use them they can help you stay on track. So can you share a quote that's really had an impact on your life or business?
Well, there's always a quote in every business that I've had. You eventually face some kind of failure. So I've always said, I don't see failure as failure, but as a sign that I need to make a change in my course of direction.
So failure is a sign to make a change. So can you share how you've applied that to your life or business recently?
Well, in the residential mortgage, when I started, it was difficult for me because all the lending guidelines changed over the years, and it was aggravating. Fine, not say the least. I'm sure you're familiar with it. That I have to trying to figure out how to get these clients approved. And in my community, a lot of the clients in the Vietnamese community are not A clients, and I find I'm banging myself against a wall. I'm literally going to fail in this business if I don't make money. So I took that as a sign that, I may have to make a little bit of course change. Maybe go back to what I was doing, go back to the bank, or maybe do something similar. And that's how I travel into the commercial side from that point onward.
So how long ago was that?
That was probably my second year as a mortgage broker.
And then, so currently, what percentage of your business would you say is commercial versus residential?
Well, I do a lot of work on the residential, but 80% of my income comes from commercial.
A couple things I want to ask you about that on the commercial side. So you put on training for mortgage brokers. So what does that look like? What do you do to help? I know that I've seen you on the Facebook group, and you like to share. Everybody should be great at commercial, and I'm like, you know what? I'm glad you're so excited about it, but I have no interest in it. So I would rather refer it to somebody who's good. So tell me about the training that you've done in the past for people.
Well, if you want to know it, you go to my website. It's called sharingbanksecrets.com /bootcamp. And you get to see an overall overview of what the course is all about. But the course is basically, I help people understand the differences, the nuances, the difference between residential and commercial. and the myths that actually people don't understand. There's a lot of myth about commercial financing and how to finance these property. I was actually able to finance even residential property on a commercial side. I'll give you an example.
Good. I was gonna tell you to share me a myth.
A myth? A myth is this. It has to be a commercial property to be financed on a commercial side. That's a myth.
Really?
Really.
I would have. I did not know that. So 10 years, no clue. Okay, tell me the story. What's the
So,
scoop on
so
this?
I had a broker that had both real estate license and broker came to me and said, look, so the client is with TD, and we went through broker channel. TD said, no, this is a recreational property. It's a residential. We understand it's a Harrison Spring. We're not interested. And the accountant that is the client has really bad finances. I looked at it. I said, yeah, no, this is not going to work. They went to the branch. The branch said no as well. So I said, well, you know what? The left-hand side doesn't speak to the right-hand side. Were you aware that TD had two different sides? Or three, for that matter, for us broker channels, right? They said, no. Well, if you really want TD, I'll get it approved at TD. Because I look at the numbers. It looks fine. The rent's fine. I got it approved at TD commercial side. At a very similar rate as a residential. Almost identical, I'll say.
Okay. So what are the rates like right now on a typical commercial deal?
If
I know that's a tough question to ask. Like, what's your rate? So I'm doing to you what customers do to us, and we're like, I have no idea. Like, what do you qualify for? But give me a range.
If it's a residential property, I can get a residential pricing. But if it's a commercial property itself, then it has to be commercial pricing, and that varies with risks and type of property. But the recent one that I did was, generally speaking, it's usually about 0.5% to 1.5% higher than residential pricing. But the recent one I did was $3.4 million. I did at 3%.
And is there fees on that?
Of course, the lender has a fee, and my fee is on top of it as well.
Okay, so that's just a different animal.
It is.
All right. Well, hey, it's good to know. I wouldn't even have. That would have been like, nope, this is a no-go. So that's good to anybody listening. Give me another myth, because since we're on the myth topic, I'm going to ask you about your book in a minute. But tell me about another myth that people would have about commercial.
Well, the myth is that it's a lot of work and it's complicated. Meaning, if I buy commercial property, it's a lot of work. So the last real estate investment club I was a keynote speaker of, I compared a warehouse, a strata warehouse versus a townhouse strata. Both similar price range. And I said, which one of these would you rather have? Everybody says townhouse because it's easy to do, easy to understand. They understand residential, right? Most investors know that. But I said, well, I had the similar situation with my client. But when he came to me, he had really bad finances. No money last year, no money the year before, really. So he can't qualify anything. You can't buy a townhouse when you can't qualify. So I told him, why don't you consider getting a caretaker suite warehouse? You can live in it, and you can rent out the bottom half, just like when you were renting a house. The only difference is that on the commercial side, you can increase the rent every year for 5 years, and people sign 3 to 5 year long-term leases, whereas residential side, 1 year. Right? So is it a lot more work? I think the opposite. Right? So on a commercial, when they sign a lease, anything that happens inside the property, they take care of. You know that 3 a.m. Phone call with a toilet leak? That doesn't happen on the commercial side. So when you're comparing how much work you can actually get involved in doing, is actually very little on the commercial side.
Right.
On the residential, oh my God, they call me at 1 in the morning. I got to go fix a toilet.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I didn't know that either. Wow, this is like you're putting on a clinic right now. It's for me. So now tell me about your book. So you wrote a book called Confessions of a Bank Financier. So what was the goal or the purpose of the book?
Well, the purpose of the book is twofold. One is, when you have clients all the time, when you meet with them and say, man, I wish you guys knew about this stuff, how credit works and all that stuff. They said, well, nobody told us. I said, don't you go to the library? Well, what do you look for if you don't know? So I thought about it. I said, you know what? Maybe people should know about this. So I've been, when I meet a client that are like brand new and I don't know whether they're for me or not, and if they have some kind of financial situation, I said, you know what? Here's a book. It's better than giving a business card, I call it, because here's why. When somebody gives you a business card, how often do you even look at the business card? How often do you even call that person back? You might be different, but the majority of people never call people back on the business card.
No, I don't even. Yeah, no, I'm not a business card person either.
So what do you do with the business card?
Oh, you throw it away, recycle it.
In the garbage. Yeah. When's the last time somebody gave you a book and you threw it in the garbage?
Yeah, never.
And it's put on the shelf, and eventually you see it. Eventually somebody will see it. Someone in your family, your friends, whoever, right? So that's my business card, by the way, Scott.
Yeah, I wrote a book a couple years ago called How to Rob Your Bank, and that's what I use it for. I give it to clients,
There you
and
go.
it's exactly that. It's a business card. It's a marketing. I'm never going to be able to retire from selling books. It's not like I'm John Grisham or something. So, but it
Yeah.
does work as a wonderful business card, and I've gotten business from books that I hand out. And so, what was the time frame that it took you to write the book? So anybody out there who's thinking, hey man, I should write a book, like anybody who anybody could write a book. It's not like you have to have a special skill. You just need to be disciplined and do it. So, how long did it take you to write this book?
I was told by my book architect who was helping me with edit and all the stuff that it can take up to 5 weeks. Well, it took me 14 months.
And so do you give out, like, do you actually have like a physical copy, or is it just an e-copy?
It's a physical
Yeah,
copy.
that's what I have too. There's something about
Yeah.
a paper, like it's in your hands, and it versus like an ebook seems just a little less valuable than a
Yeah, rarely people open the ebooks, and then when they forget about it, where do you find it?
yeah, you don't, but as a book sits on a shelf, and
Yeah.
that's good. And so the other thing we were talking about before we got on the air, you had said that you have got a lot of business from an unconventional place. So do you mind sharing where you get a bunch of your business from?
Well, it's all about positioning, right? In our market, we have to find a niche. So my positioning has been with the bank, because I totally understand that if they're A lenders, chances are they're not going to get all the business. They can't do everything that comes their way.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always approached a lot of the branch manager and a senior account manager, how I can help them as a Band-Aid solution. So my thing has always been creating ambassadors. So I don't view my competition as competitors, but as an opportunity to create ambassadors.
Mm-hmm.
So example, actually nearly every lender in the Lower Mainland has referred me business.
Mm-hmm.
TD, Post Capital, Scotia, RBC, BMO, you name it. The reason why is that I've been in the business. I've been at CIBC before, and I know that we can't help all the clients A, B, and C. There's no such thing as B and C even at CIBC. Yeah, there's some state there's they can sneak away with, but overall, if they have an existing business client that are doing poorly for several years in a row, they don't like them to be on the book any longer. They usually ask them nicely to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of losing face and losing client and pulling all the accounts out and their friends hear about it, they have potential to have a lot more as a fallout if they lose one of that client,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I position myself and say, "Look, you know what? Instead of kicking them out like that, introduce me and say I'm part of your team and I will help them during the rough transition, and then help them with the accounting in a year end so that everything looks nice and rosy again." Like the current client that I just helped out with TD, they were losing money 3 years in a row. And when I got call in to help to see if I can help them, as I looked at the financials, yeah, they look really bad. But however, the guy has a contract, physical contract. They need 6 figure in loan so that they can get the big project. So that at the end of the year, their numbers will look really, really good.
Right.
So that's when I came in. I said, you know what? I got private money. I got People's Trust, Equity Trust, or even Blue Shore. There are B lenders out there that will be able to give them a temporary loan for 6 months, a year, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, their accounting, the numbers, the financial looks much stronger. So I can send them back to TD, and TD is like, wow, new account again,
Right.
right? And they love it.
That's such a great example of how to build your business. So yeah, I love it. I've just recently listened to this guy, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but maybe I'll put it in the show notes. But he talked about one of the things you have to do is you have to identify a problem, which you've done. You need to share a solution, which you've done. You've said, hey, look, we'll solve it for, and then you need to deal with the objections, which in this case is, so what? Am I never going to see this customer again, or what's the? And so
Exactly. Yeah.
you've dealt with all of those things literally in sequential order, and it's a great framework for thinking about how you communicate to people. So I think I can see why more part of the reason why you're having such good success with it. So another area that I think, like, obviously systems and processes. So like when you're working on commercial files, do you work on lots of them? Are there fewer but they're bigger? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah, they're fewer but bigger, like 2 to 3 million. And my fee has always been, because I have a value proposition, and I always show them, I give them two choice. I say, either I charge them a 1.5% fee on the loan amount, or the money that I save you, I get to keep. They usually don't like the money that I save them because it's a lot more than my 1.5%.
Right. Oh, that's really good. And so has anybody said, give me the savings?
Yeah, no. My last client, I showed them how I saved them $120,000 from the other broker at Blue Shore. They look at that 120,000. I charge them 45 grand. They said, "Wow, you have a choice. Either pay me the 45 or the 120. It's up to you."
Yeah, wow. And that's such a great like it changes the anchor point in the whole discussion, right? So it's kind of like when you see on late night. I know you're not doing the late night TV thing, but they'd be like, "Oh, it's it looks like it's 49, but wait, call now and it's only 29.99." And so by showing them the $120,000 in savings before you communicate that your fee is 45 grand, which might seem like a lot, but it seems like a deal compared to 120.
Yeah, business owners understand it.
Yeah. It's not like it's totally different ball game, right?
Yeah, and no rate shoppers, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Because they're looking for solutions.
Yeah,
That their priority is solution, uh, obviously.
yeah, and reading those contracts that the banks have for commercial is that even it requires a little bit of work. Residential is pretty straightforward, but commercial they can hide stuff in there.
Right, because they're unique and they build them like it's not like they're like a residential mortgage is the same for you as it is for me if it's from the bank. But
Yeah.
do the commercial mortgages do they can put in different stuff, right?
Oh yeah, I mean they get away with it too. Like CIBC did a similar one, and it's collateral charge on a commercial. It's like, you guys know what this means? Clients have no idea.
Right, that's pretty awesome. And so now I want to ask you about sort of marketing. So how have you been marketing yourself? Like how are you finding business? You've been doing this for 5 years. There's obviously Vancouver's a massive market. So how are you connecting with people?
Well, I've always been a fan of finding your niche. They say the Americans love it. Get rich in your niche, right?
Right.
And that's where I see it. For me, I see the Vietnamese community as business owner. There are a ton of business owners. How many restaurants, how many nail salon, and so on and so forth do you see them? Mechanic shops, everything from every industry. They're involved in landscaping and all that. They're pro business, and and my language skill in the Vietnamese community is good enough to be able to suffice.
Mm-hmm.
So I target them specifically at the beginning to grow my business. But when I see that there's a certain threshold that they can afford, so I didn't like that. I said I want to make bigger money, so I have to spread myself even wider by going out there and to help other brokers, for example. That's why I go into teaching,
Mm-hmm.
and as well as being the center of influence. I keep volunteering for different clubs and different meetups, and eventually I got asked to take over the reign of the Synergy Real Estate Investment Network. There's over 520 members now.
And how often do you guys meet?
We meet once a month.
And that's in Vancouver. How many people typically come out to a meeting?
There's probably about 40 to 50 people come at any given time.
Yeah. See, you've got a lot of good things going on between your book and the fact that you have a niche, and then now you have like a network or a community that you're building. So I have no doubt in 5 years you're going to be like massive. You probably won't even take my call in 5 years. So you'll be like, I listen, I'm so important now that I can't return your call. I'm just kidding.
Oh, I'll always remember, Scott. I always love watching and hearing the other podcasts. I always.
Okay, good. Make sure you return my calls when you're like, driving around in a Bentley or something in Vancouver.
It'd be one of those new Tesla. You can take the drive as well.
Yeah. Oh, nice. The new Tesla. So I'm gonna move to some rapid fire questions. So what is one thing you think holding back most mortgage brokers from being successful?
Goya, get off your ass and meet somebody.
Go, yeah, get off. That's good. And what one thing or habit has made you successful?
I always look at it and say, make each day count. So if I do something, at least if it's moving 1% closer to my goal, I've done something worthwhile that day. I didn't waste it.
Right. That's good. And then do you have like an internet resource or a software or anything that you use to make your business run better?
For commercial, I use what one of my colleagues uses. It's called Trello, and it's great for to-do lists that just expands and you can fill in stuff. It's like a CRM program, but it's free. So anybody interested, just go to trello.com. It's a great program.
Right. That's awesome. So where do you think the industry's headed? Where's the opportunity?
It's huge. It's massive. I mean, you think of residential is huge? Look at the commercial side. Billions and billions of dollars. We're talking about portfolios of exchanging hands, 20, 30, couple $100 million at a time. Imagine getting a 1% of that fee.
Right. Yeah, that's massive.
Massive.
So yeah, you've almost convinced me. I love the residential side though, so I don't think I'll leave. But our conversation has almost convinced me that, you know what, maybe the commercial, but I can't do it.
You can always set a team, Scott. Residential,
Yes.
you can train them. Commercial is really tough to train.
Yes, that's true. The last question, the DeLorean question. Remember the movie Back to the Future?
Yeah.
So there's that car, you can travel in time. So if you could jump in that car and go back 5.5 years to when you started, and you could give yourself 3 pieces of advice so that you'd have a bigger, better business, what 3 things would you tell yourself?
Oh, become an early contributor. Anywhere you go to any kind of big events, find a way to contribute, be a volunteer or something. Get in front of people. Because when I was in front of the real estate club, I was just a door guy holding the door open. They thought I was part of the organization,
Right.
right?
Okay, what's the next thing you'd say?
I say find a core value so that you're not a jack of all trade. Find out what you really love to do and do it best. At the beginning, I was a jack of all trade. I want to help out with finance. I want to help out with, insurances and all this stuff that really distracting. The Pareto rule is 80-20. Just focus on one thing you're good at and do great at it, like what you're doing, Scott.
And then what's the last thing you'd say?
Set long-term goals. If I never set the long-term goal, it sounds hokey, but if people who don't set a goal, they'll hit it too, which is nothing,
Right. It's totally true.
right? So set a goal. You may not hit it. At the beginning of the year, I set for 250,000. Well, I hit it. And then I go, now what? You got the rest of the year left, but I didn't have any other goals. So my next goal is hitting $1 million a year. If I don't hit $1 million a year, you know what? I'll settle for 500.
Yeah, exactly. You'll survive, right?
Yeah, I'll survive.
They'll be like, oh, my kids will. Do you have kids or family?
Yeah, got a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Right. So your kids will still eat. It's all good.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, this has been lots of fun. I've learned a ton about commercial, which I admittedly know very little about. Anybody listening, you can get links to everything that we talked about, as well as to Sua. And where can people find you online?
SharingBankSecrets.com.
SharingBankSecrets.com. Thanks so much, man, and I hope you continue to crush it.
I will, and hope everybody does the same thing.